Stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, Commissioners, you have the minutes in front of you. Any additions, deletions, motions?
Motion for approval.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and properly made second on the minutes. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, minutes are approved. Moving on to announcements and deferrals. Mr. Tyndall?
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I'd like to welcome Mr. David Smith to the Planning Commission, formally adopted by the state this month. So welcome to the board up here. Next item is, as you can see on the screens here, we are having a General Development Standards open house tomorrow. We do have some small groups meeting in the afternoon from some different developers and engineer groups. If you haven't been invited to one of those as an engineer or developer, come see me afterward. We'll get you put in the appropriate time slot to talk to our consultants. And then from 5:30 to 7:30 tomorrow night upstairs, we'll have an open house to talk about the General Development Standards. These are things like parking, buffering, screening, landscaping, parking requirements, and the such. So we'd invite you out tomorrow night for that. And as always, those documents are available on our website. If you just click the Get Involved tab on the front page, you can navigate to the current zoning items there. The only other item, Commissioners, we do have one zoning deferral, and we'll cover that right now on page number 5. Z6 2026 application of William Ballou from Ag to R1 on Needmore Road. That has been requested for deferral by the applicant for another month. I'll just need a motion on that deferral.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and properly made second on the deferral of Z6. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, it is deferred.
All right, this is the second month we've tried to do this. We're putting the site plan and subdivision items up front. This part is done under consent agenda. I will tell you, Commissioners, if we do receive emails or recorded on a phone, if someone wants to dictate a concern against something, we will pull it off the consent agenda because it's not considered non-controversial at that point. But all other items can be done in one motion. So I'll read the statement here. All items in this portion of the agenda are considered to be routine and non-controversial by the staff of the Regional Planning Commission and may be approved by one motion. However, a member of the audience, commission, or staff may request that an item be removed for separate consideration. Mr. Parker, would you read the consent agenda into the record?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Tyndall. Our consent agenda as is case number SR 87 2025. The development is called 2265 Trenton Road, mixed-use property. This is proposed use as retail and multifamily, and the recommendation is for deferral. Case number SR2 2026 Chase Bank, Hilldale Heights. The proposed use is a freestanding bank with ATM. This is also recommended for deferral. SR11 CFA 06163 Fort Campbell Boulevard. The proposed use is a commercial restaurant. The recommendation is for approval. Case number SR23, recommended for deferral. My apologies. Case number SR2326, applicant is Chris Blackwell. The development is 1302 Restaurant and Market. Property is located southwest of adjacent to the intersection of Highway 48 and Hawkins Road. The proposed use is restaurant, market, and food storage. The square footage is 5,849 square feet. The staff recommendation is for approval subject to the conditions listed. Case number SR24, applicant is HLG LLC. The development is called Eisenman Office. It is located along the southern frontage of Townsend Court, approximately 180 feet west of the intersection of Townsend Court and Old Farmers Road. The proposed use is office building, and the staff recommendation is for approval subject to the conditions listed. Case number SR25 2026 is Urban 6 Realties, the applicant. The development is called the Apex. The property is located as a site consisting of 3 separate parcels between North 1st Street and 2nd Street along Bogard Lane. The proposed use is multifamily, and the staff recommendation is for approval, subject to the conditions listed. Case number SR 2026 is Meon Enterprises. The development is Emerald Event Center. The location of the property is on the north frontage of Highway 41A bypass, approximately 400 feet south of the intersection of Highway 41 and Madison Street. The proposed use is bank and retail, and the staff recommendation is for approval, subject to the conditions listed. Case number SR 2026. The applicant is Chris Blackwell Development, 309 Ferris Drive. Triplex is the name of the site. The proposed use is multifamily, and the staff recommendation is for approval, subject to the conditions listed. Case number SR 2026. Applicant is Life Point Church. The development is Life Point Church additional parking. The property is located on the southern frontage of Calumet Drive at the intersection of Prophet Drive and Calumet Drive. The staff recommendation is for approval, subject to the conditions listed. Case number SR 2026. The applicant is Redisol Holding. The property is 1662 Golf Club Lane, and the recommendation is for deferral. Case number SR 2026. The applicant is Jamal Pavlini. The development is called Meadow Hill Auto. The property is located along the south frontage of Madison Street, approximately 500 feet east of the intersection of Country Lane and Madison Street. The proposed use is an auto dealership, and the staff recommendation is for approval, subject to the conditions listed. And finally, case number SR 2026. The applicant is Joe Sarah, and the development is Sarah P. Ridge. The property is located east of and adjacent to the terminus of Delray Drive, northwest of and adjacent to the intersection of 101st Airborne Division Parkway and P. Ridge Road, and the recommendation is for deferral. Thank you, Commissioners.
All right, Commissioners, you've heard the consent agenda there. Any discussion or motions or?
Let me see. Anyone from the public
Oh,
need to
sorry.
pull any of these items from the consent agenda? All right. If not, they'll be approved per Mr. Parker's recommendation there.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and properly made second on the consent agenda. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, consent agenda passes. All right, on the next cases, we're going to have a public hearing on each one. We'll allow 3 people to speak in favor, 3 people to speak against, and there will be an opportunity for rebuttal as well. Everyone has a time limit of 3 minutes. I would also like to remind everyone that this body just passes recommendations along to the City Council and the County Commission for as far as the zoning cases go. If you are interested in the zoning cases on your agenda today, the City Council and the County Commission meetings, the upcoming events are noted on there. And also, if you have any other questions in the process, you can call the RPC and they can help guide you through the next steps. Without further ado, I'll turn it over to Mr. Spanhauer for the first case.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, for the opportunity to be here today and present these applications. Our first application is one you heard last month at Z2 2026. The owners are Infinity Investment LLC, and the request is to go from R1 Single Family Residential District to R3 Three Family Residential District. It's a property located 1167 Mile Ferry Road. The reason for the request stated by the applicant is to provide affordable housing on this property. The extra density will help with some topographical challenges on this property, and it would be an extension of the existing R3 zones immediately east and west of this lot. This would connect the 2 R3 areas. Again, that's the statement from the applicant. This starts on page 1 of your, the staff report starts on page 1 of your city zoning tab. This does encompass 20.16 plus or minus acres. It's a tract with areas of steep to moderate topography, and it's wooded. It is in the South Clarksville planning area. You'll see the department comments that were followed and provided following under the department comments tab. No gravity sewer is currently available. Possible off-site sewer lift station upgrades would be required. That came from Gas and Water. The Clarksville Street Department required a traffic assessment due to the proposed zoning acreage, received and is in compliance with the traffic study guidelines. You can see the report for additional details if you wish. I believe there are no other department comments of concern. I will note you'll see school system comments with capacities there at 9. The impact would be increased residential density. It would be served by city services and accessible from 7 Mile Ferry Road. The applicant's estimate is 74 lots with the population listed. Historical estimates from our 10-year historic lot yield is 100. I will note in the description that there is a discrepancy in that number, but this does have some steep topography as been just previously discussed. So the difference in that number is not uncommon in those situations. This is in the South Clarksville planning area of the adopted Clarksville-Montgomery County Comprehensive Plan. The future land use designation in the comprehensive plan is suburban neighborhood, and the staff's recommendation is for disapproval. This request is inconsistent with the overall goals and objectives of the adopted Clarksville-Montgomery County Comprehensive Plan. The future land use opinion map designates these parcels as suburban neighborhood. Large areas of R3 moderate density residential within this designation do not fully reflect the intended development pattern for the area. The South Clarksville planning area and the growth and development framework section of the Clarksville-Montgomery County Comprehensive Plan discourage development on steep slopes due to increased risk of erosion, higher construction cost, and other safety factors. Access to this site is limited to the intersection of Ashland City Road and the 41A bypass, which serves as the sole connection to the major street network. The submitted traffic assessment identifies a poor level of service E condition on the southbound approach. This negatively contributes to associated traffic safety concerns. In addition to the above referenced traffic safety and levels of service concerns, the road serving this site, which is 7 Mile Ferry Road, is described as substandard at 16 foot wide. The road is adjacent to areas of steep topography, which makes improvements such as widening sidewalks, etc., difficult to construct. Additional study or assessments are necessary to determine the feasibility of the required improvements. The page 4 and 5 are the aerial overviews of the request. The next one is the future land use designation for this property. And then the next map shows the floodplain associated with the area. And then you have the current zoning map and then the crosshatched area of the zoning request. Beyond that, you have a couple of pages there, forgive me on the number, but of public comments that were received in opposition to this application. That does complete the presentation of the staff report. I will say this, we did have a conversation or exchanged emails from Mr. Garrett Lindsay, who has been serving as an agent or on this application, and he did express interest of potentially deferring this case an additional month, but it did not meet the minimum requirements to not conduct a public hearing or the presentation. But if that is the case, I will go ahead and announce now that the staff has no issue with a deferral if that's the pleasure of the board. So if you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them.
Commissioners, any questions? All right, I'm going to open up public hearing on Z2 2026. Would anyone like to speak in favor? All right, seeing no one, would anyone like to speak against Z2 2026? Come on up, sir, please. Name and address.
Virgil Nunn, 165 East Regent Drive. As I stated last month, 7 Mile Ferry Road is not meant for anything like this. His access to that property is approximately 70 or 80 feet wide, straight up. It's through rock. To develop that, he'd have to cut that road completely off for people going up and down. People live there. Clarksville Boat Club's down there. Montgomery County Conservation Club's at the foot of the hill. I mean, it's just, the road just will not, the school, like I said last month, the school bus won't even go up and down that road. Our caretaker has to take her kids to the top of the hill every morning. So it's just, it falls off hard on one side. It's rock on the other. It's just, I don't think it's a good idea to come off 7 Mile Ferry Road. He had stated last month that he might try to come off Gatlin or Kingsbury. Would have no problem with that, but 7 Mile Ferry Road will not support that. Thank y'all.
Thank you, sir. Would anyone else like to speak against Z2 2026? Come on up, ma'am. Name and address, please.
I'm Lisa Nicholson. I live on Pumping Station Road. I stand here to strongly oppose the rezoning from R1 to R3. My family and I have lived here for probably over 100 years. This area was built and thrived as a single-family, low-density community for years. The single entrance and exit can simply not handle the increased traffic. There are several blind driveways, and the road empties straight onto 41A bypass, notorious for wrecks. Without a turn lane there, it's already dangerous enough. We have many concerns about this change. The increased traffic, the Blind Hill entrance, the community quality of life, the decreased privacy, the limestone shelf, if they have to do any blasting, could cause damage to our existing homes and can create hazardous living conditions. The property loss due to the road widening, it's not highly probable that the road widening would be necessary. It would be necessary to increase the traffic. Those are just a few of our concerns, so we're asking that you vote no on this matter. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I have room for one more if anyone wants to speak against Z2 2026. Come on up, sir. Name and address, please.
Hello, I'm Jeffrey Fletcher, 1111 7 Mile Ferry Road. I think we've gone over about everything, even I think some of the councils had letters that we have written about it. It's just we're worried about the traffic and safety. Like I said, school buses won't even run up the hill, so these children will have to walk up the hill and down to the bypass and catch the bus on 41A bypass, with 50, 60 mile an hour traffic. You have trouble with the water runoff now. The road is really narrow. There's no sidewalks. There's no drainage. I actually have a lot of sinkholes started on my property where the water washes over now off of the road. So I think that increased drainage will really just ruin our section of land over there. And we just request for a denial on this. It's just, like I said, I know whoever the property owner is, I think it's Mr. Rita, but I know they bought the property and they have use for it. We just don't feel this is the correct use for it at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, we're going to exit public hearing. Commissioners?
Are we required to defer it 30 days since the applicant requested that?
What I can tell you is I received that correspondence about 10 o'clock this morning asking what would be needed to make a deferral, and I told them they were beyond the time frame that they would need to be here to speak to the need at the podium. And they said thank you, and I did say forgive me for not mentioning it the first time, but in the future, if you want an automatic deferral, it would need to be done before close of business the Friday before the meeting. Explain the procedure of how to address it without coming to the podium. So they've expressed the desire to do so. They're not here to speak to it, so I'll really leave it to the pleasure of the commission. And I will add again that we don't have a problem with the deferral. I know there was some discussion last month in reference to the topography and making a connection to Kingsbury and potential ownership of who owns the property between that. There was some back and forth in reference to that. I don't know that it ever came to a resolution. That's why we didn't change our recommendation. And so there is Mr. Rita, so maybe he can answer that question if if the chairman's willing to open the public comment again.
Would you like a deferral, sir? Mr. Rita?
I would like that, yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you. Okay.
I make a motion for deferral based on the request of the applicant and to allow us to hear any updates from last month.
Okay. We have a motion and properly made second for 30-day deferral. All those in 30 days, right, Mr. Streetman? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, Z2 2026 is deferred.
Commissioners, your next application, I believe, starts on page 23, if I'm looking at that correctly. It is application Z10 2026, the application of Batson East Land Company Incorporated. The request is to go from AG Agricultural District to C5 Highway and Arterial Commercial District. It's a tract of land consisting of one full parcel and a portion of another located on the northern frontage of Edgewood Place. Approximately 950 feet west of Wilma Rudolph Boulevard and Edge Place intersection. The reason for this request stated by the applicant at the time of application is rezoning of agricultural land to permit, medical office consistent with future land use as identified in the 2024 Clarksville-Montgomery County Comprehensive Plan. Rezoning is necessary to permit the construction of a new Department of Veterans Affairs clinic. This request does encompass 61.8 plus or minus acres. Again, that is the reason for the request by the applicant. Going back to the staff report, I will point out it is in the St. Bethlehem planning area. You'll see the department comments there on the bottom of the first page, referencing the street department. Spoke to the traffic assessment or study that was provided and requested and provided. There are details there. I'll save you the time of reading through all of that, but our recommendation does attribute to some of those. The drainage, there is a blue line stream, which is Spring Creek, along the northern bounds of this area to be rezoned. Buffers would be required at the development. You do have the school capacities there included. Impact would be increased traffic, light, and noise associated with commercial use potential. Currently listed as North Edgewood Place road access. This does front along the under construction Spring Creek Parkway. Again, St. Bethlehem planning area, future land use map indicates regional commercial and mixed use. The staff is recommending approval of this request. It's consistent with the overall goals and objectives of the adopted Clarksville-Montgomery County Comprehensive Plan. The proposed C5 highway and arterial commercial district is being proposed at a location that's appropriate with the current roadway network, with additional transportation and roadway improvement and construction projects that are underway fronting this site. Of which I referenced the Spring Creek Parkway there. This aligns with the St. Bethlehem general recommendation of coordinating future development with infrastructure improvements. Those are referenced in the previous comment and attributed to the next bullet is attributed to the street department. Detailed comments, a full revised traffic impact study will be required at the site plan development stage to address specific site considerations for transportation-related infrastructure improvements and items not included in the current assessment. You have a series of maps there that show the wide angle, the close-up view, they're cross-hatched, the floodplain is referenced on the northern boundary, future land use opinion map, and then the current zoning map. At present, we've received no public comments, and if you have any questions for myself or the staff, I'll be more than happy to try to answer them for you.
All right, seeing no questions, we'll open up the public hearing on Z10 2026. Would anyone like to speak in favor? Come on up, sir. Name and address, please.
My name is Rustin Corey, 27500 Detroit Road, Westlake, Ohio. I'm here to represent the developer of the new VA clinic. And I first just want to say thank you for your time and consideration. I can see that this community has grown like crazy, so the job of this commission has been critical. And I just wanted to say the objective that we've been given from the Department of Veteran Affairs is very clear, which is to get this project out of the ground as quickly as possible. I think this community has been waiting a long time to see a facility of this scale available in Clarksville to service the growing veteran population. And so we're extremely excited to be at this point, having the deal officially awarded by the VA, and now having the opportunity to get to work hand in hand with the authorities having jurisdiction, inclusive of the city and the state, to try to work towards a land disturbance permit this summer. So obviously your consideration and timely concurrence on this request is critical to our objectives. Just very briefly about Carnegie Management, my organization, we have a long-standing and deeply rooted relationship with the U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs. This will be our 12th major clinic that we will develop for the VA. All of those we still own and manage, so our strategy is long-term ownership. We are not merchant builders, so building connections with the community in which we develop is of critical importance, whether it be today, tomorrow, or for what we hope to be the next 40 years. And that's truly how we view these projects, and trying to create an ecosystem that can be both sustainable and allow the VA to optimize its delivery of health care to the veterans, but also be a really pleasant environment, incorporate gardens and walking trails, and really understand the experience that veterans, their caregivers, their families go through on these types of days where they may have multiple appointments. And again, bringing a facility of this size to Clarksville with the variety of service lines that are going to be provided will hopefully save veterans a lot of time who currently may need to go to Nashville for some of those specialty services. So we really appreciate your consideration and your willingness to help shepherd this project through. We're extremely excited for its delivery for this community and for the veterans. And again, we'll be here, so if there's anything needed from us, please do not hesitate to ask. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Would anyone else like to speak in favor of Z10 2026? Seeing no one, would anyone like to speak against Z10 2026? We're going to exit public hearing. Commissioners?
Make a motion for approval because this request is consistent with the overall goals and objectives of the adopted Clarksville-Montgomery County Comprehensive Plan.
All right, we have a motion and a properly made second. All those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, Z10 2026 passes.
All right, Commissioners. Let me hit my microphone. If you'll go to your county zoning tab on page 1, you'll have your very first county case. It is CZ2 2026, the application of Knox Thomas and Shirley Thomas. The request is to go from AG Agricultural District and C5 Highway and Arterial Commercial District to M1 Light Industrial District. The agent is Mr. Whit Hamilton. This is for a portion of the tract of land fronting on the western frontage of Guthrie Highway, approximately 400 feet south of the Shady Brook Lane and Guthrie Highway intersection. The reason stated for the request by the applicant is to rezone a portion of the existing property along Guthrie Highway frontage to M1 from ag and C5 split zoning. This zoning is consistent with the remainder of the property, is intended for development of a stabilized laydown yard with associated infrastructure to service the intended use. This request encompasses 35.8 plus or minus acres. It's currently agricultural land, currently being row cropped. It is in the Rossview planning area. The previous zoning history for the C5 portion was from 1994. You'll see the department comments that were in reference to this application. Gas and water indicate no water main upgrades would be required. There's no current sewer available. The highway department did receive a traffic assessment and they've had no concerns listed. I believe that is all the department comments. It would be served by city water as referenced earlier, accessed by Guthrie Highway. TDOT has been made aware of this request. It is in the Rossview planning area and the future land use designation is rural reserve. Staff is recommending disapproval. This request is not consistent with the overall goals and objectives of the adopted Clarksville-Montgomery County Comprehensive Plan. This request does not align with the rural reserve future land use designation. You have your aerial overviews of the request. On the first three, the additional shaded area is the floodplain that's in the area. There is the future land use designation. And then there's the current zoning map. If you have any questions for myself or the staff, I'll be more than happy to try to answer. I will add that when this application was originally discussed, the applicants were looking at M2 zoning. And when they specified what the actual use was, we did encourage them to consider the M1 zoning classification, even though it did not fully align with the future land use because it was less of an intense zoning classification. And then there are specific to their use in M1, there are specific conditions they have to meet for buffering. So if that question is discussed, I just wanted to go ahead and try to explain that on the front end. And if you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them. Thank you.
Any questions, Commissioners?
I do have a couple of questions. One is,
Go ahead, sir.
with what they're zoned right now, what limitations do they have against what they're gonna ask for with the M1?
My understanding is they cannot do the requests that they want to do in the current zoning. Originally, when this started, I think they thought the property started the zone line that the C5 is there. They asked for more than the Knox Thomas family asked for more than they needed originally. So you do have the creep of the C5 over onto this property. Still doesn't align with the use, so that's why it's included. And again, they started with M2 when we sat down and talked through this. M2 and M1 don't align, but for what they're wanting to do, M1 is the lesser of two evils, not to put it in a bad way, but so this would afford them to do what they want to do with the conditions. And then I will say that the rural reserve areas don't go into great detail with, there's not a lot of commercial nodes to consider expansions of these zones. And so it's really at the pleasure of the board and the legislative body. So.
Anybody else? All right, we'll open up public hearing on CZ2 2026. Would anyone like to speak in favor? Come on up, please. Name and address for the record, please.
I'm Shirley Thomas, and I live at 5040 Guthrie Highway. And I'm speaking for Knox and I, and we've lived on the farm Knox has all his life with his granddaddy and his dad and farmed, and we plan on continuing to live there. So we're just asking that y'all can consider this zoning change to be approved to the M1, because we don't have a problem with it, and we're going to be basically right beside it. And so we're okay with it, being the neighbors of it. And we're just hoping that y'all can approve that for us. And I want to thank you and hope that you'll take this into consideration for us.
Thank you, ma'am. Would anyone else like to speak in favor of CZ2 2026?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner Stanley Ross, 308 South 2nd Street, Clarksville. Just want to ask y'all to consider recommending approval for this zone change to M1. Like Mr. Spain-Howard mentioned, we're not looking to do anything really intensive here. The site plan that we're going to have is going to be a laydown yard to basically service other areas in the industrial park where they can stage materials and equipment that kind of are mostly materials, I believe. It's going to be on a long-term lease, so we don't foresee any change on that. Basically, we've already got plans. We'll have a 5 to 8 foot berm around the area, so it's kind of shielded. There's going to be a 50-foot landscaping buffer with hardwoods, evergreens, kind of, like I said, keep everything shielded, along with privacy fence. And all the materials that are being staged there, stored there, will be wrapped or handled in containers, so there's not going to be a bunch of random things laying around. As Mr. Spain-Howard mentioned, we did have a traffic study, or we did have the traffic looked at. We're looking at maybe 10 entrances and exits a day on this. There's really no impact to the traffic on the road whatsoever, and I think there's already been some discussions with TDOT where we're going to have 2 access points. One's going to be entrance only, one's going to be exit only. So we're trying to keep everything flowing smoothly out there. I don't think it'll really be a problem. We're close to, so I know we've got a rural reserve issue, but if you look at the maps, you can see the northwest corner of this property is maybe a couple hundred yards from the manufacturing and industrial component of the land use opinion map. And there's already M2 over there. Everything between our current parcel that we're asking about and the state line is already C5. There's C5 across the street. There's also C5 a little bit down the road where the co-op is. So we're basically asking to transition from that industrial area that's already there down to the C5. This would be a good transition. There's already like a fencing company that's got a laydown yard type area in there. It's right next to us. It'd basically be kind of the same thing. We're not asking for any extension of utilities. If there's a concern about, expanding this use to something different, as Mr. Spainhoward mentioned, there'd have to be sewer run, all kinds of stuff like that. Right now, they don't have to do any of that for this intended use for the laydown yard. So we're giving a long-term, low-impact benefit to the community by doing this. It's helping the industrial park and the businesses in there. So we would ask that you do approve that transition down from the M2 to the M1 to the C5 and recommend approval on that. Thank you, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions, anybody? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Or would anyone else like to speak in favor of CZ2 2026? All right, seeing no one, would anyone like to speak against CZ2 2026? All right, we're going to exit public hearing. Commissioners?
I make a motion for approval based on it being nearby the M2 as well as having C5 both beside it and across it, and the only neighbor being here to speak in favor of it as it being part of their entire property.
Second.
All right, we have a motion properly made second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, CZ2 2026 passes.
Commissioners, your next application for zoning is CZ3 2026. It's the application of Arthur Clark. The request is AG Agricultural District to C5 Highway and Arterial Commercial District. It's for a portion of a tract of land fronted on the southern frontage of Dover Road, approximately 2,600 feet west of the Oakwood Road and Dover Road intersection. The reason for the request stated by the applicant is for an outdoor sportsman store, archery shop, and indoor range. This is in the rural area of the growth plan. Presently zoned ag, proposed to go to C5. It's currently a grassland field with tree lines. It is in the Woodlawn, Dotsonville planning area. Property owner from the comments from the utility district is the property owner would be using existing water meter to service the property. The Montgomery County Highway Department stated traffic assessment for Oakwood and Old Dover Road intersection is required. This traffic assessment provided only accesses to Highway 79. No access would be granted to Old Dover Road until a traffic assessment is provided for the Old Dover Road intersections at Oakwood Road. Additional requirements may be established as part of the TDOT site plan review process. There were no other department comments relative to the commercial request. The impact would be increased traffic light and noise with auto-oriented commercial use potential. Again, it's served by Woodlawn Utility District. Sewer service would be through septic and access to Highway 79 and Old Dover Road. Future land use designation is rural reserve. The staff has recommended disapproval. The request is not consistent with the overall goals and objectives of the adopted Clarksville-Montgomery County Comprehensive Plan, and this request does not align with the rural reserve future land use designation. Similar to the previous application, Mr. Clark had made several trips to the codes department and to our office to try to look at different less intense zones that were permitted to allow for these items. And ultimately, it centered on C5 as the zone that allowed him to accomplish what he was trying to do. So you do have the aerial overview maps for the property. You do have the future land use designation of rural reserve, and then you do have the zoning map that currently exists in the area. If you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to try to answer them for you.
All right, seeing no questions, I'm going to open up public hearing on CZ3 2026. Would anyone like to speak in favor? Name and address, please, sir.
Arthur Clark, 3804 Dover Road. I ain't much of a speaker, but I'll try my best. So we're originally, me and my wife were originally from Evansville, where we had a processing place. I've hunted up here since I was a kid, and I've always dreamed of coming up here. So whenever our kids got older, we bought a place, and of course the archery place is not just a business. We're going to use it for an outreach, really, for the community. Where I was from before, I was part of an archery team, and I, studied the business of it and what all we did, and we had a team there, which I plan on doing the same here. Yes, I'm gonna have a business that's for the hunters and everything else, because that's been spoke about. I've hunted at LBL and Fort Campbell, and everybody's like, man, we ain't got nowhere to go if we need hunting supplies, all this. But that was another thing that sparked my interest. And this business, you can't really do it. And like having an archery team for the community, that's our hobby. That's what we love to do. And the indoor range, I plan on setting that up for that, to outreach in the community for kids. We've, like I said, I'm part of the S3DA, ASA. I don't know if y'all know about that, but S3DA, ASA, USA, I'm a level 2 archery coach. I've done all the stuff to do all that. But I mean, that's pretty much what it is. And you can't do it so you can't do this, like I've checked, like renting buildings within the city and even buildings in the county. I mean, you can't have an archery business and pay $10,000 a month rent. So this is the cheapest way to go about it too. So I'm asking that y'all approve it where I can do what I want to do. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Would anyone else like to speak in favor of CZ3 2026? Come on up. Name and address, please.
I'm Beth Clark. I'm 3804 Dover Road. I'm Arthur's wife. I just wanted to elaborate on what he was trying to say. This is not a big commercial building that we're going to do with just sporting goods stuff or anything. It's solely through the archery community, and I know that Woodlawn Middle School is trying to get an archery coach, and Woodlawn Elementary already has one. And she was telling us also there's nowhere for the kids to go to shoot archery, and this is just for families and children to get together, have a little friendly competition in archery. We do have a team that we can also have through S3DA and the schools with the NAS community, the program through that, and just, basically have kids to go somewhere to shoot indoor archery, get out of the elements and have somewhere to go where they can just have a good time and do competitions and such like that. But it's not going to be a big archery store. We want to sell a few things, but it's not going to bring a bunch of traffic or commotion by no means. We talked to all of our neighbors and they're all for it. If there's somebody here that opposes it, we'll listen to them. But I just think it'll be a great thing for the community. And just consider having it rezoned to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Would anyone else like to speak in favor of CZ3 2026? Would anyone like to speak against CZ3 2026? All right, we're going to exit public hearing, commissioners.
I'll make a motion for approval based on there already being C5 in the area. It being a great benefit to the community to be able to have a business like this, and because I think the speakers did just fine getting up here explaining what they wanted to do.
Second.
All right, we have a motion properly made second. All those in favor? Any opposed? All right, CZ3 2026 passes.
All right, thank you, commissioners. We'll go back into, these are our site plans and subdivisions that have been removed from the consent agenda due to either staff having an issue or opposition letters or calls from the community that have kicked it off the consent agenda. So I'll turn it back to Mr. Parker.
Okay. Thank you, commissioners. If you want to go to your site plan portion of the report, our first case that has been removed from the consent agenda is case number SR 9/2026. The applicant is Banner Properties LLC. The name of the site is Banner at Ajax. Proposed use is is apartments, and the location is 375 Bellamy Lane. It's approximately 11.25 acres. 180 units are proposed,
Public hearings.
and the current zoning is R4.
Let's talk about the annual report. That's different.
On page 26, you'll see the aerial overview of the site. The following two pages, 27 and 28, are the site and landscape plans respectively. Pages 29 through 37, you'll see the public comments that have been provided to the Planning Commission. Some of those were last month. And then finally on page 38, you'll see the traffic study that was submitted, that was provided, I believe, in the previous application. And the commissioners may want just a little time to look over that. All right, commissioners, any questions or concerns on the letters we have so far? Okay. I'm going to open up to public hearing then. SR 9/2026. Would anyone like to speak in favor?
Houston Smith, 2971 International Boulevard. Since the last meeting, we were able to provide the traffic study that showed the level of service at the intersection. Street Department added a few conditions to study a few more things that'll be looked at the site plan level or during their approval process, and the developers have no issues, providing any of those warranted improvements that are necessary. So everything else meets the zoning regulations, and we ask for your support. Any questions?
Thank you, sir. Would anyone else like to speak in favor of SR 9/2026? Seeing no one, would anyone like to speak against SR 9/2026? Come on up, sir. Name and address, please.
Lane Brown, 397 Bellamy Lane. I'm not going to rehash everything I said last month. I appreciate that you did another traffic study, and I appreciate the commitment to doing what the traffic study says, but I'm the kind of guy who likes to see it on paper. If it's not in the plan, it doesn't always get done. And this body has the duty to look at that and think about it. And, I've given a lot of thought to this over the past 30 days looking at this. I wonder if this commission would have approved this zoning 40 years ago if it were brought to light now. That's neither here nor there, but something I wanted you to think about. Because I've been listening today. We're looking at CZ2 that has 2 access points for what he said would be 10 exits a day with trucks. Z10 talked about needing a full traffic study. This is going to bring nearly 400 daily cars to a site plan that still just includes 1 access point onto a 20-foot road with no shoulders and no sidewalks. I don't know where all those cars can go. I will continue not to know that. And again, as I stated last month, I'm not against them developing this property. People need a place to live. I'm not against building apartments. But we've got to do it in a way that the existing infrastructure can support or adjust the infrastructure to support it. And right now, currently, there's commitments in the ether to say that could be done, but there's nothing on paper. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Would anyone else like to speak against SR 9, 2026? Mr. Smith, would you like to rebut? All right, no rebuttal. We're going to exit public hearing, commissioners.
Can I have Brad finish the staff report before we get any other motions or questions?
Yes, sir.
We failed to do that on the front end.
Sorry about that.
That's all right.
Okay. Staff recommendation is approval subject to the following conditions. Number 1, approval of all utility plans by the city engineer's office and the utility district official. Approval of all grading, drainage, and water quality plans by the city street department to include road and sidewalk improvements as required. Number 3, meet CDE requirements per CDE light band design at full cost to the developer. Number 4, access a permit approval. Prior to issuing an access permit or allowing any right-of-way construction, the applicant must submit a supplemental engineering memo providing the following 2 things: a formal left turn lane warrant analysis using standard AASHTO or TDOT nomographs, and number 2, an intersection and stopping site distance certification for the proposed driveway. Thank you, commissioners.
Okay, first question, and you guys may be able to answer it, but I will want to hear from the street department as well. Looking at number 4, the access permit approval. Prior to issuing an access permit or allowing any right-of-way construction, the applicant must submit a supplemental engineering memo providing the additional information. At what point in the process does that occur?
This is a sort of a new comment we've received from them. This is typically stuff we do get during the plan, but Mr. Green is here to can elaborate on that. But they do still need to get their grading and their access permit from the street department. So I believe they said they will wait to hear that studied. And in essence, the speaker was correct. If it's not warranted, it's not going to happen. If it is warranted, it will happen. And I don't know I can't speak any further on the warrants. That's out of my lane there.
Okay, well, and I can ask the question at what point. If you'd like to go ahead and come up.
Joe Green, Street Department.
Thank you. At what point is the access permit, at what point in the project is the access permit usually requested?
Either at grading permit or during the RPC review.
So it wouldn't, go ahead.
It would be, at this point, it would be a grading permit.
And if I'm stupid, I apologize, but is a grading permit and access permit the same thing?
No, it's not the same thing.
Okay.
But we review those 2 things at the same time.
So the access permit would be issued prior to any grading being done?
We technically don't have, you can't just apply for it, the way you would apply for a grading permit. You don't apply for an access permit. We review that during the grading permit process.
Okay.
Am I not being clear?
No, the condition is very specific. Access permit approval is required prior to issuing an access permit or allowing any right-of-way construction. So if we don't issue an access permit, I don't understand the condition. Does anybody else?
I don't know. These are your words, right, Joe?
Right.
Yeah. So I understand what Joe's saying is that they look at access at the same time they look at the grading of a property. And sub items 1 and 2, the formal left turn and the intersection and stopping distance, you're going to require them to look at that when they apply for the grading permit.
Correct.
/ access permit.
Correct.
It's all one permit.
Right.
But not at this point today.
Right.
But there's no access permit that's ever issued, so this condition doesn't apply in any way, correct?
We can change that language on the floor to grading permit. I think if that satisfies that, it's still the same trigger, and they still do have to go to the street department for a grading permit. At which point they'll also look at the access and these sub-bullets of 1 and 2 on the bottom there.
Okay, and this is, and why didn't we request a new traffic study?
Joe, is there an answer to that one? we got one traffic study, right? But this past
have
month,
it.
it's not an updated traffic study, correct?
Right.
How old's the traffic study?
2 years?
23, I think.
3 years.
3 years?
Yeah. So, I mean, was there a reason we didn't request a new traffic study? I know, and I appreciate the applicant gave it so that we could have it for today, but was there a reason no traffic study was requested with it having 3 years having passed?
I can't say.
I don't know really where to go there because, I mean, if we don't know why, I mean, in 3 years' time, I mean, we've had unprecedented growth here, and I know I was the one that postponed this a month ago so that we could have this looked at. And one of the things I did reference was a left turn, but I think even Mr. Tyndall talked about we could, may want to consider a deceleration lane to turn right in there. We're talking about 180 units going on there, and we even heard from one of the people that spoke. It's not a exceptionally wide road that we have there, and with postponing it a month, so this could be further looked at. It does concern me that the best we came back with was the language for access permit approval when there is no access permit.
Commissioner Streetman, if you're not comfortable with what you see today,
I'm not.
and if you don't think the traffic study being now almost 3 years old, 2023, 2026, is adequate, I think it's completely within your ability to make a recommendation for deferral for additional information and study. If you want this left turn warrant analysis and the intersection stopping distance done before you approve it, I think that's completely in your toolbox.
I'd like to have more information, and I hate to ask to delay another month when we've, already done it a month, but that is something I'm going to do is ask for postponement so we can get actual answers, because I don't feel any different than I felt a month ago. So I don't know if anybody else has any questions. If not, I'll go ahead and make the motion for a deferral for another month. Exactly what Mr. Tyndall just sat there and said. I'd like to see another traffic study, more information, and like I said, not just the left turn. Maybe the left turn isn't warranted, but then we need to look at, do we need a right lane deceleration, especially with coming there, it not being very far from Warfield Boulevard. Warfield, no, I called it the right thing. Okay.
All right, we got a motion for a 30-day deferral, and thank you, sir, and a properly made second. All those in favor? Any opposed?
One question.
Yes, sir.
Is this the second deferral we've had?
It is the second deferral.
The next time it has to pass or, right.
No.
So after this request,
Site plans are not held to that requirement. That's a subdivision requirement. This is a site plan. Nope, just subdivisions. The state's trying to pass a new law for next year to do site plans very similarly. So again, to recap, Commissioner Streetman, you want to see the left turn analysis and the stopping distance analysis, and then any updated plan and an updated traffic count to confirm that.
If there's a way that if the left turn's not warranted, then maybe it is just the right lane acceleration. But I'd hate for them to get, we don't get another opportunity once we approve this. This is our only opportunity to do this, and I also don't want them to get too far in the process and have to try and change their plans mid-shift. So I think it'd be best to have it up front. And again, I hate to have to delay another month, but I do think it's important.
I agree. It was not a typical comment from the street department to push it off further. And if you want to see those improvements, I think you have the right to see those improvements.
All right, so SR 9, 2026 has been deferred 30 days.
Okay, thank you, Commissioners. Our next case is case number SR 18, 2026. The applicant is VHS Developers. The name of the site is Persinger Place Apartments. It is multifamily proposed use. The property is located east of and adjacent to Allen Road, south of Brewster Road. The proposed acreage is approximately 27.19. Number of units proposed is 432. The current zoning of the property is C2. If you want to go to page 77 of your report, you'll see the aerial overview of the site. On pages 78 and 79, you'll see the site and landscape plans respectively. And there is a public comment that's on page 80. The staff recommendation is for approval subject to the 4 conditions listed, those being approval of utility plans by the city engineer's office, approval of all grading, drainage, and water quality plans by the city street department to include road and sidewalk improvements as required, recording of the plat for the travel easement, and final approval of the landscape plan. I'll point out that this was approved by the Common Design Review Board yesterday's meeting, and if there's any questions for the staff, I'll be happy to try and answer those. Thank you.
Seeing no questions, I open up public hearing on SR 18-2026. Would anyone like to speak in favor?
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm Vernon Weekly, 108 Center Point Drive. We feel like we've made all the requirements and ask for your vote for approval. I'd be glad to try to answer any questions.
Questions? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Would anyone else like to speak in favor of SR 18-2026? Seeing no one, would anyone like to speak against SR 18-2026? We're going to exit public hearing, Commissioners.
Motion for approval. Second.
All right, we have a motion for approval, properly made second. All those in favor? Any opposed? SR 18-2026 passes.
Okay, Commissioners, our final site review is case number SR 28-2026. The applicant is Red Snapper LLC. The site is called LeMay Concrete Storage. It is a concrete contractor storage. The property is located at the rear of 1661 Fort Campbell Boulevard. Approximately 1.7 acres is is existing, and the current zoning is C5. On page 108, you'll see the aerial overview of the site. Page 109 is the site and landscape plan, and on page 110 is a public comment that we received. The staff recommendation is for approval subject to the following conditions. Number 1, approval of all utility plans by the city engineer's office. Approval of grading, drainage, and water quality plans by the city street department to include road and sidewalk improvements as required. And number 3, recording of the minor plat. If there's any questions for the staff, I'll be happy to try and answer those.
All right, seeing no questions, we'll open up public hearing on SR 28-2026. Would anyone like to speak in favor?
Good afternoon, Cal McKay Merchant Company Engineering, 1545 Madison Street. He's just trying to put a storage building back there to for some of his equipment, tools, trailers. We had a driveway connecting to Shannon Street. We were requested to ask to remove it, and the owner complied. We were asked to add additional screening and landscaping along Shannon Street, and the owner complied. Everything else, I believe, meets the ordinance, and a similar configuration was approved 2016 or 2017 that had self-storage back there instead of concrete storage. But I'll answer any questions.
Thank you, sir.
Cal, I just want to say thanks for removing that driveway and for the neighborhood back there.
All right, would anyone else like to speak in favor of SR 28-2026? Would anyone like to speak against? Exit public hearing, Commissioners.
They made all the recommendations that staff did for them, so I'll make a motion for approval. Second.
All right, we have a motion and properly made second. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? SR 28-2026 passes.
All right, Commissioners, just a few items of other business. The first item is the monthly profit and loss statement through February of 2026. I'll be happy to answer any questions and appreciate a motion on that.
Make a motion for approval.
Second.
All right, we have a motion for approval and properly made second. All those in favor? Any opposed? All right, it passes.
Next item does not require an approval. We provided some of you at the informal last week, and there's a couple copies around here. When we completed the comprehensive plan last year, one of the recommendations that we said is we should be producing an annual report so that you, the elected officials, and the public know what we're working on any given year. Because not everything we do can be necessarily measured by amount of applications or hours spent here or there. So this attempts to give you an idea of the different projects worked on in the calendar year of 2025. We will be giving this to the city and the county next week as part of our report to them. It is now available also on our website, and I just hope you take a chance to look at it. And if you have any questions in the future, get back to us. We will have a subdivision regulation update next month. I am pleased to announce that the city and the county legislative bodies did approve the platting by staff resolutions that we sent forward. So I would like to thank them for that opportunity to just keep the efficiency going that we have built. But we do have to update the regulations slightly to comply with that. And there may be a few other items we put in there. We haven't updated them for over a year, so there might be some new stuff that we put in there or clarify some language that will be available at least probably 2 weeks prior to our meeting next month so others can look at it. And then finally, there they are. Just flew in from Chicago today. Glad they got through TSA and got here. John Houseel and Nicole Campbell with House Levine. They're in town today and tomorrow to work on our zoning code update with us. Today they were just meeting with the Austin P Biology Department to go over local landscaping ideas and try to incorporate more local native species into our landscaping. Tomorrow night, as I mentioned, we are having an open house here from 5:30 to 7:30, and they're conducting, I think, 6 or maybe 7 local small groups with different builders, engineers, and special interest groups tomorrow, the city code, the county code department, to talk through some of the code updates. So they have a short, just verbal update about where we're at. We intend to kind of complete this summer so that we have a rough draft by the end of the summer vacation time, and then bring it towards you early August, September to look at a final draft before we get it towards the elected bodies. So, John, you can come to the podium and just give us a quick update where we're at and what we expect over the next 2 days.
Thanks, Jeff. It's good to be here again on the update of the process. I'm John Houseel with Houseel Levine. With me is Nicole Campbell. Nicole is really running the day-to-day project management for this. We were lucky enough to work with you all on the comprehensive plan. As a follow-up to that, as Jeff has said, we're working on the zoning code update. Last year, we presented a preliminary recommendations report. That's after a lot of outreach and activity, sort of zeroing in on the things that we thought need to be addressed in the code update. And based off of feedback and discussion from that preliminary recommendations report, we prepared and moved into then the districts and uses. If you think of zoning, think of it as sort of 3 chunks, right? There's a lot, but there's 3 basic chunks. One is districts and uses. Where do I live? What's my zoning? What can I do? How tall can my building be? What are the setbacks? Sort of like uses, standards, districts. That's one sort of chunk of a code, kind of. The second chunk to think about it is rules of general applicability or design and development standards. If you're going to build a parking lot, what does it have to look like? Doesn't matter where it is. If you're going to put in landscaping, what are the landscaping standards? If you're going to put in signage, what is the signage standards? It's not always district specific. It's these design components, right? That's where we are right now. We're working through those design components. The next piece is sort of the less fun stuff, but probably the most critical, and that's that administrative piece. If I own a piece of property and I wanted the development, what's the process I have to follow to get review and approval? I want to get a variation. What do I have to do to get a variation? How do people engage with the city and the county and the RPC on zoning matters, right? It's that administrative piece, that engagement piece. So those are sort of the 3 chunks. We presented after the preliminary recommendations report, we presented the preliminary and draft land use and districts earlier with you, got a lot of good feedback, took that back. We are now in the process, after the PRR and land use and districts, we are now working on the design chunk. So I'm going to let Nicole chat about sort of where we are now, what we've got planned over the next couple of days, and sort of reiterate a little bit about the schedule that Jeff just talked about.
Hi, everyone. So the general development standards is that general applicability. That includes things like parking, landscaping, fences, screening, outdoor lighting. It is really a lot, but it is really important for how sites look and feel. So as Jeff mentioned, we are going to be spending time with focus groups. We had one earlier today, and then we'll have the open house tomorrow at 5:30 in this building. We'd love for you guys to come out, learn more about it, give your feedback, and just show support for the project. So thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate it.
And over the last, I don't know how long, how many meetings, so Jeff and Matthew have the privilege of jumping on a call with us every week to work through stuff. We roll up our sleeves, we kick around concepts, we vet text and graphics, and we really sort of get into the dirty work. Does it work? Does it not work? Is it necessary? Is it worded correctly? What are we trying to achieve by this regulation versus that regulation? So know that Jeff and Matthew are on the phone with us every week trying to work through this piece by piece by piece so we can deliver these chunks. So making good progress. It takes the time, but we are on track to meet the end of summer, early fall, complete working draft of everything, and then we'll be in a position to start getting feedback, discussion, begin to take it through that approval process. So that's it. All right.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks so
Appreciate
much. Appreciate it.
All right, we do have on the agenda space for public comments. Would anyone like to address the commission? You get 3 minutes. Seeing no one. Entertain a motion.
I entertain that.
All right, we got a motion to adjourn. Can I get a second?
Second.
All right. Thank you, guys. Man, your lid is malfunctioning here.
It writes good, but the top
It does
is rude.
write good.
You like